I would like to see, what is only natural, more rate of success and quicker.
What do you think particularly puts off Spanish businesses from investing?
As I was telling you, lack of information, fundamentally lack of information. We are directing our efforts to remedy such a situation, and for instance, as a step, we are changing precisely these days our advisory for travel, differentiating the different situations in the country.
Do you think the Spanish government looks at Iraq and the Kurdistan region as one and the same?
As you perfectly are aware, we are a regional state as well. We have 17 autonomous regions with an enormous amount of autonomy for them. For instance, I think that our efforts towards regionalization has gone even further than such countries and Britain or Germany. Certainly much more than Italy or Britain. So, I mean, we understand the situation.
But do you think the Spanish government and then in turn the Spanish people are able to differentiate between Iraq and the Kurdistan region? Because we often mention that the Kurdistan region is the safer part of Iraq. It's the part that's going relatively well in comparison.
We know that the situation is different because history has been different, and recent history has been also very different. So it's only natural that such differences do exist. And I believe that the Spanish government certainly, understands very well the situation. As far as the general public is concerned, perhaps, the level of knowledge is a bit less because, as I was telling you before, the international media tend to lump, everything into the same, into a situation that seems to be the same. But I believe that through this information effort that your regional office is doing in Madrid, and also the information that we transmit from the embassy, little by little, the level of knowledge is increasing.
What other things need to be done to rectify this situation in the media, in particular, to ensure that what's coming across and the reality on the ground is truly shown properly through the media?
I would like to tell you that there is an easy way, but there is no easy way. There is no easy way because the level of, the type of news, is basically controlled by big information agencies. The level of journalists, the number of journalists in Baghdad these days has decreased quite a lot. And everything seems to be, channeled through these information agencies. So perhaps we should ask the information agencies to be a bit more careful and more truthful.
As we mentioned, the media tends to like bad news. Do you think the violence in Iraq, more so than the Kurdistan region, is also one of the reasons why investors are more reluctant to come in?
Certainly, to tell you the truth, this is a reason, yes. And that's why we are trying to pass the information that there are different situations at the present moment in Iraq. Having said that, we in Spain have had, as you perfectly know, our own terrorist problem. And so I believe that we are in a good position to understand the situation here.
In regards to the political situation in Baghdad, you've only been there for a year, but do you think federalism is the right political system, is the right concept for the Kurdistan region and the whole of Iraq?
This is a very hot issue. I would say that when you have different communities and when you have even different languages, like we have, in Spain, we have different nationalities. I mean, you have a Gallego nationality, you have a Basque nationality, you have a Catalonian nationality. We have in Spain, if I remember all right, 4 official languages. So I suppose that this is a way of solving, a lot of problems. I must stress, however, that we found that such a solution could be terribly expensive. And this is also a reason to take into consideration.
In regards to the security situation, again, do you think the US withdrawal of their troops will have an effect also on any potential investors looking to invest, purely because they think maybe there's a vacuum left, violence will increase, as we have seen straight after the withdrawal. There was a great surge in violence. Is this going to be a problem?
Well, I think that the American withdrawal was discounted already for a long time ago. I mean, it doesn't make really any difference whether you have 5,000, 15,000 or 30,000 effectives here. Certainly the number we have been hearing in the past months never, reach levels superior to 30,000. So the American withdrawal represented no vacuum, I think. And certainly I don't appreciate a political vacuum in Baghdad. On the contrary, I would say that Baghdad is sometimes even too full.
Well, you live in Baghdad
Yes.
now. What is the situation like on the ground now? Is it as volatile as we see in the media, or things are going well, progressing? The transition to democracy is going well, or is it not?
Well, again, I would say that the international media transmit essentially bad news, and they tend, to underline the bad news, because those are basically the news. Good news are no news, really. And I always tell my people, that at the center of every storm, there is a vacuum. I feel completely safe in Baghdad. I have many friends. I can attend, embassy dinners, or I can go to my friend's house and have dinner with them. And I'm very fortunate to have the embassy and my residence outside the green area.
Okay.
So.
And you still feel safe?
I still far more safe, in the sense that my friends, can come and, without any impediment or any problem to enjoy, our drinks or to have dinner together or whatever.
You've also traveled into the Kurdistan region. How does the safety differ from the two?
There is no problem of safety here. Mm-hmm. Is there?
No.
Okay. So we
Do
agree.
you think this message, how can this message be gotten across much better?
Well, I think that the situation since last year has even improved. For instance, last year I remember my close protection unit, Spanish close protection unit at the embassy insisted in coming with me. This year I've come without any bodyguard or any...
To the Kurdistan region? To the Kurdistan region,
yes.
You mean no bodyguards?
No bodyguards.
Mm-hmm. So you
friends.
Friends is different.
Friends are the best bodyguards,
of
really.
Of course, I agree. So you would stress this to other people also, that the Kurdistan region is very safe, is very stable. It's not the same as Iraq.
Well, I again, have to stress that difference in recent history has been, very meaningful between the Kurdish regional area and the rest of Iraq. The liberation of the rest of Iraq came some years later, didn't it? So the difference is notable, yes.
Why do you think the Kurdistan region has been able to better utilize the liberation process after 2003, more so than the rest of Iraq?
I think you are blessed by something which is very important, and is that you have ethnic unity, that you have had a common cause for a very long period of years, and that you have very thoughtful and very wise leaders with a lot of experience. I know that not everybody is in agreement with everybody else in Kurdistan, but I think this is the normal process of a democracy that is going to be, I hope, and I think is going to be like that, a solid democracy. I believe you are in a historical moment of enormous importance.
If we move aside politics a little bit and discuss economics, what do you think Spanish companies can bring to the Kurdistan region with their investment? What do they have to offer?
Well, I think that we can be quite efficient within a range. Perhaps there are sectors in which we are not the topmost, of efficiency in the world. But certainly there are other sectors in which we can be efficient, complementary, good prices, and no political strings at all in our trade.
Which sectors would you encourage businessmen to focus particularly on in the Kurdistan region?
I would emphasize machinery tool, building, agricultural implements. For instance, our effort in agriculture in the south has ensured for us the first harvest in all Europe, and our greenhouses, are enormously efficient. Our irrigation systems are quite efficient. You must take into account that we share with this part of the world certain geographical traits that are very similar. Like, for instance, we have very dry lands, and then we have very fertile lands nearby. The transferring, of the fertility of the green areas, to the dry areas has been done through artificial irrigation and has been done in record time. I think this is something that we can contribute specifically, to this part of the Kurdish region. Again, I emphasize building, but what I would like really to underline is our will for technological transfer.
What's your thoughts on the progress that the Kurdistan region? What's your thoughts on the progress that the Kurdistan region has made, having seen the reconstruction boom, all the investment, all the economic boom as well? What do you make of it in such a short period of time?
Well, this is really fantastic. We were commenting before that landing by air in Erbil, provides one with a really, dreamland of reconstruction and building and new building and all this. But you must be careful, because this could have at the same time the signs of a bubble. We have a building bubble, a construction bubble in Spain, and when it exploded, it was quite nasty. So these efforts should be wisely channeled and very well cared for, because if not, they could turn into something nasty.
Were you surprised by the progress that you saw? Did you expect it to be as
I
big?
wasn't surprised, because I already knew about it. We read the statistics in in Baghdad as well and in Madrid, and we knew already that the progress was very considerable. Yes.
There's a lot of praise for the investment law in the Kurdistan region to lure in investors. Do you think it's enough?
Well, it's never enough, of course, but I think it's adequate. I think it's adequate, and according to everything I hear, is increasing. Moreover, your budget seems to be a very healthy one, and with all signs of further increases in the rest of the year.
You've had a lot of experience in the Middle East in your background. You have worked in Afghanistan, which also saw a liberation process. You're now working in Baghdad. How do the two countries differ, if at all?
Well, there is no comparison. Afghanistan is a society on the making. Here, society is already made. In Afghanistan, I'm very sorry to say, at the present moment, I believe that this society is in danger, while here society is improving day by day. Hope is certain, which is something very important, and optimism. You can find both of them, here and in Baghdad, while in Afghanistan are becoming, a very scarce commodity, indeed. Yes.
Do you think a military presence is still needed in Iraq, even though they're on the transitional path towards democracy, a more stable society? But do you think the military still needs to be here? Not necessarily U.S. military, but any coalition.
No, I would say, that if Iraq or Kurdistan, feels the need for some bits and pieces of advice, then with all due respect, I'm sure that not only the United States, as you said, but also the European Union would be more than happy to provide it. But I think that the military in Iraq has an enormous tradition. Now it should be a democratic tradition as well. And I believe that you are perfectly able to stand on your own feet. Again, I stress that if you feel in need of any cooperation, many countries would be more than happy to extend it, and ideally from many different angles.
You mentioned other community countries, including the European Union. How important is international cooperation in the reconstruction of a country like Iraq, which has seen so many years of conflict?
Well, I believe that we are the second contributors to the rebuilding of Iraq. And it's a contribution that, again, I stress, has no political strings.
How important is that?
Sorry?
How important is that for some of the reconstruction, that there's no political affiliation, no political strings, it's purely about the reconstruction process?
Yes, it's purely about reconstruction process and about the establishment of a secure environment here in Iraq. Because for us, you must understand that the presence in the Middle East of a stable and rebuilt Iraq, not only in terms of infrastructure but also politically wise, is very important, because to have at the present moment, with the difficult international environment that we are having in the area, a country that can contribute to stability is a very important factor.
The US troops have left Iraq. There are plans to have them withdraw from Afghanistan. What do you think the liberation process, what sort of legacy does the liberation process and America leave in these two countries, and how does a European country like Spain view this legacy?
Well, you know, we had our troops in Afghanistan. We have at the present moment a contingent of 1,500 effectives. They are basically dedicated to reconstruction in a very poor area of the northwest of Afghanistan. We have a PRT there, provincial reconstruction team. I think you are familiar also with such elements here. I believe our effort there has been quite successful. We are going to withdraw along with the rest on 2014, and a bit unsecure, you know, about the time limit, because I believe that the Afghan situation will be prolonging itself much more than 2014, unfortunately. What was the other part of your question, please?
What legacy do you think the liberation process leaves behind in Afghanistan, will leave behind in Afghanistan, and does leave behind in Iraq?
Well, in Afghanistan, I am disconnected already for 1 year. This has been a very important year for Afghanistan, but I'm dubious about what's going to be left behind. I'm very dubious, because still the situation seems to me to be quite chaotic. The institutions, you know, that were new institutions, I'm not sure how sure they are. While here, I mean, you have a long tradition of institutional development. Luckily, this development has taken completely the right direction in Kurdistan, and I believe also in the rest of Iraq in the last few years. And I repeat, my impression is that you are able, I'm referring to both, to Kurdistan and to Iraq, my impression is that you are perfectly able to stand on your own feet.
Okay. From a cultural point, what were your thoughts on the Kurdish people and nation, the culture? Have you had a chance to explore any of these things, the history and the heritage?
You mean the heritage of Kurdistan?
Yes.
Kurdistan. Well, this is an enormously rich heritage. I mean, I have only to consider, for instance, that Nowruz is considered to be patrimony of mankind, one of the intangible patrimonies of mankind. You have a very long tradition in poetry, you have a long tradition in music, you have a very long tradition also in self-government, and I hope that you are going to exploit as well your enormous potential wealth in archaeology and in preservation of antiquities. Because I mean, such monuments as the citadel in Erbil, or the monuments you have here in Tomb of Daniel and Kerkuk, and all these, you know, should be better known in the West. We are planning, by the way, you know, a very good, a very important exhibition for this year in Spain about Sumerian art. I think we could start also, I mean, I'm going to talk to the Prime Minister, and I think we could also, you know, start thinking about a particular exhibition of Kurdish arts in Spain. Last year, the Kurdish regional government sent a music orchestra of traditional Kurdish music to Madrid, and it was an enormous success.
And just finally, I'm not sure if you're aware or not, but Kurdish people in the Kurdistan region are very big fans of Real Madrid and Barcelona. So my last question is going to be, when the two play and El Clasico is going on, which side do you tend to support?
Well, I confess that I am completely football illiterate.
Really?
Completely,
okay.
completely.
It's a diplomatic answer.
But because of my son, you know, I think I should support Real Madrid. But I grant that it's becoming much and much more difficult during the last months, because Barcelona, I mean, is probably one of the best teams in the world. And by the way, we have, in agreement with the Kurdish regional government representation in Madrid, we have a project of bringing football schools of the Real Madrid to Kurdistan. Thanks. I suppose that's a good news.
That's a very good news. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching another issue of Inside Kurdistan Extra. Goodbye.